All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Manish, and welcome to the first episode of Code and Coffee Conversation. And I'm super excited because I do have a tech wizard with us, Monica Marshall. So, any one of you who does not know who is Monica, Monica is basically a solutions architect in United States. She is based out in Colorado, and she has been doing the IT stuff from last more than a decade, I would say. And she comes from a different industry, starting with aerospace, e-commerce, manufacturing, and has done everything when it comes to the digital transformation, starting with rocket launch application to cloud transformation to everything. So just we want to keep it light and fun. So hope you all are gonna enjoy it. So welcome, Monica. I just want to keep it very fun here, and basically, I just want to start with the beginning. How did you start in the IT? If you can tell our viewers about your journey, how did you start? How did you land in tech? And I mean, did you land in tech or tech finds you? So can you talk about it?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you, Manish, for inviting me to this podcast. I feel honored to share my experience and my knowledge in the IT field. It started a long time ago, about 20 years ago.
My God.
My very first degree was in languages.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can imagine, I'm trilingual. So I
Okay.
speak Italian, German, and
Wow.
English equally well,
Mm-hmm.
fluent in all three languages. From languages, I naturally transitioned to computer languages.
Wow.
So you can imagine that natural language are clearly spoken by human, whereas computer languages are spoken and understood by computers. And so transitioning from one to the other came very naturally to me. Both computer languages and natural languages have a syntax, okay, have grammar. So if you forget in Java to end a statement with a semicolon, you're going to be warned about a compiler error, right?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I know.
So that was language was my passion from when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So on my own, I started to learn German and English when I was in high school. So
Okay.
you can imagine, right? And language is absolutely fundamental to be able to clearly convey messages and ideas and concepts to other humans. And in this case, also in IT, to computers. And computers are phenomenally attractive to me
Mm-hmm.
because they give us the capability of automating and relieving repetitive tasks to a machine. So a machine can clearly execute tasks a lot more efficiently than a human can do. If I want to repeat the same tasks 1,000 times within a second, there is no way a human could ever do that, but a machine can.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the big things that attracted to me about computers.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to automate tasks, being able to execute tasks in a much speedier way than a human can do, and
Mm-hmm.
also relieving details about practical details to the machine, whereas for us it would take us forever to figure them out. So here we go, for example, AI, ML,
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence, and machine language that allows us, for example, to ingest
Mm-hmm.
huge, large volumes of data, which a
Mm-hmm.
human could never do, and
Absolutely.
would and on time is able to parse that data and deliver intelligence okay, statistics data, intelligence data, financial deductions that a human brain could never execute. So I cheer and I love computing because it has transformed our lives. It has made our lives a lot simpler, and it has been able to give us insights that we humans could never achieve. So
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
fear anything that falls under automation, under machine language, and artificial intelligence. Um, so Manish, returning to your question, I have to say I don't think tech found me. I think I went out and looked for tech.
I mean that shows the courage,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I you talk about the
Yes.
AI ML stuff, and currently I am working with a very big IT services company, and which is responsible for engineering everything to the power of AI, right? And now because of
Yes.
the agentic AI bubble, I would not say bubble because that's the reality now. And everyone is using agentic AI for everything, automating all the tasks. I'll come to that, but before that, I just wanted to make sure that because you studied in Germany, right? And you have
Exactly.
worked on,
Yes.
you know,
I
you work.
enrolled,
Mhm,
yeah. After I earned my master's degree in linguistics, I switched to computer science, which was very attractive to me back then.
mhm.
The ex-husband completely revolutionized my interest by showing me a program written in C that would show as a string, the hello world string, going from left to right and then wrapping again and showing, appearing it again across the screen, disappearing and in a circle, returning over and over and over. And just by looking at that, I was so fascinated
Mhm.
that the next day I was at the University of Maryland studying computer science.
Wow.
So I finished my degree in computer science at the University of Maryland in Germany.
Mhm.
And then from there, right after I finished my degree, we decided to move to the United States, where all the IT,
Mhm.
the was happening, right?
Yeah, land of
So
opportunities.
I we came here in 2000,
Yeah.
in year 2000, right at the turn of the millennium. That's when
Mhm.
we landed in America. And I've been working in Colorado since then. So I have 20 plus years of experience. So I started with C++ programming.
Okay.
I wrote together with another individual the video conferencing reservation systems for MCI WorldCom,
Okay.
which in 2003 was bought by Verizon. And Verizon still uses the
Okay.
video conferencing reservation system
Mhm.
that we wrote in between 2000 and 2003.
Monica, just to let you know, I mean, that was about to be my next question. You literally answered that question. I was about to ask you
Yeah.
what was your first line of code, if you remember, and you already told
Yes.
me that it was
My
C.
very first line of code was in C++.
C plus
C,
plus.
well,
Okay.
we started in C and then
Mhm.
we transitioned to C++. But then shortly after, I decided to embrace the Java language.
Okay.
And the Java language was not a language that was taught to me in college. It's
Mhm.
a language that I went out and searched by myself. So
Mhm.
while I was working full time, I instructed myself in Java and I told my employer, my boss, my manager, I am sorry, I want to leave C++. I want to start writing Java code. And that's how I put myself and I transitioned to that. And I love the Java language, absolutely. I haven't found a language that is superior to Java. And when you ask when you ask me between Microsoft technologies and open source technologies, that's where my preference absolutely is. It is not in proprietary
Mhm.
languages. but is in open source languages. And the principle, the fundamental principle is that proprietary is meant to make money on what you have. So at that point, if you need to make money, you're going to protect the technologies instead of sharing them, right? Whereas in the open source field, the non-proprietary field, whatever is intellectual property that I create, I make it available to the community so that the community can contribute to it. And when we have a sharing and contributing mind, the level of growth and creativity is infinite versus in pursuing technologies that we want to protect from the outside, and we want to make them the source of income, the source of profit, the source of economic advantage. And so from my perspective, I have a sharing mind. I love collaboration. I love for minds to get together and grow together instead of keeping my knowledge for myself and protect it from other exclusively for financial advantage.
Okay.
So when
I
you
have a
ask
question. I just
me,
want to,
yeah,
cut it short
yes,
here. So I just wanted to make sure, because the thing is object oriented is always something which looks very complex to me,
yes,
right? And
yes.
I find Python is easier than Java. I'm not sure why, but when you started, how
It
many
for
times
sure
did you
is.
Google APIs? What is APIs? How many times you did that?
Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct, Manish. Python is a much easier language. As a matter of fact, when I went to ULA with my Java expertise, and we had to decompose the big monolith right into microservices to be deployed to a Kubernetes environment with Docker containers and Docker images. The very first proposal by me, clearly, we need to write this in Java, right? And the whole team, was clearly a Perl expert, a
Okay.
C or Perl expert. And that's all they knew. They said, we're sorry, but we're not available to write this in Java. We need to find a language that we all agree upon. And of course, we chose Python, right? Because it has a learning curve that is way easier and a lot less steep than Java. That's absolutely true. And so, guess what? Within 2 months, all of us, we started to write microservices in Python,
Okay.
and migrate, and we did it. We did it.
Okay.
And with goodwill and determination and perseverance, and above all, willingness to put in the extra mile to reach goals, that's when big results come.
I know you have worked with ULA and then Pratt and Whitney. You have worked
Yeah.
on rocket launch application. If
Yes.
you can tell our viewers that which was one of the project that taught you the most.
Yes. Okay. ULA, still now, you can look it up on, for example, on LinkedIn. ULA launches regularly rockets out of Cape Canaveral in collaboration with NASA.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Now, you have to imagine that a rocket launch usually has a preparation of thousands of people, okay? Thousands of people that collaborate on a launch. So, my contribution, I can't say, oh, I launched
No, I
a
understand.
rocket in space.
Yeah.
That's not something that happens. It's thousands of people that get ready and are ready for the mission to happen and to succeed. So the level of collaboration that I had is in taking this gigantic monolithic application, which was the software tool application that handled telemetry data. Now, telemetry data, for anybody that is not aware of, is all data that's being emitted by the rocket while it reaches and flies toward its orbit, toward its target, by every single component that is part of a rocket. So a rocket is composed of about 250,000 parts.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And yeah, 250,000 parts as a minimum. You can imagine that every single part has to send data, status data, okay, for that particular physical part back to the ground stations that control and monitor the rocket while it's flying. So all this telemetry data is collected and is parsed and give insight to the ground stations on Earth, whether about the health status of the rocket. So clearly there are massive amounts of data that come to the ground stations that has to be analyzed, that has to be parsed to be able to then possibly, in case of malfunctioning or failures, has to accordingly respond to it. It's called telemetry data.
I
Okay.
have one very
I
interesting
help.
question, Monica. Like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
most of the companies currently and keeping their employees on their toes when it comes to the software development or the because just to let you know, I mean, I just wanted to keep a context clear for our viewers. So how did I found Monica? Because I was given a challenge to find a person who is really good with the application architecture as a whole, as well as someone who has done the data architecture from the scratch. So it was a very challenging
Exactly.
experience for me, and that's how I was fortunate enough to get you, Monica. So I'm very happy.
Exactly.
So I was just talking about, because most of the companies, keeping their employees on their toes, because they also have a deadline to put everything in production, right? So suppose if you have do you recall, like, any of the time when you had a very tight deadline and you had to complete it by hook and crook? How did you manage that?
Oh, I manage such tight deadlines by actually investing a lot more time than I should be by contract, right? Because usually by contract, we're supposed to work the 40 hours a week. Okay. That has never been the showstopper for me. So my take on a project is not working by the hour according to the program, to the contract I've signed on, but is in investing every single skill and every single energy I have for the success of the project. So it's literally about putting my personal, let's say, preferences or personal interests in second line toward the first line, which is what does it take for me to take this project to a success point within time constraints and within budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to have some devotion and some how can I say, some yeah, maybe generosity, I don't know what to call it, but it's literally putting your personal interest in second line versus the primary interest of the project.
Yeah.
And so I worked, for example, at ULA. Sometimes I worked 16-hour days. And all I could do is just work 16 hours, feed myself in between, and then go to bed and start the next day again on the same schedule. And you know very well that that's just temporary. It's just a question of putting in the effort for a limited period of time to be able to succeed. And that's sometimes that's what's required. For example, at Travelport, I had to be on call 24/7. So for 1 week at a time, we would change our clocks, our turn, we would switch turns. And for example, being available to be called at 3 a.m. in the morning to brainstorm on an issue, on a production issue that would prevent users to book flights. And we didn't have a choice. That's a sacrifice that you have to do. And when you have that level of commitment, your personal interest comes in directly in second ground. So being available to come up with the energy, with the investment, with the sacrifice that it takes for the benefit of the project.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the thing is that is what a lot of people needs to learn, and I loved it. I mean, because the thing is, you need to prioritize, what is important, and based
Yep,
on that, you can use your bandwidth there, right? Next
right,
segment, I just want to move to next segment, and that is very close to my heart. I'm pretty sure that is close to your heart as well. That is
yeah.
representation, right? When it comes to the IT, and I'm not sure how many people are gonna agree with me, but what I felt is like it's a male dominated IT industry, right? So
Absolutely, it
how
is,
did
and it
you
still
I will give
is.
you the whole time to, because this is very important for our viewers, right? So because as I
Yep.
mentioned, it's a male dominated industry. I personally feel, and whenever I see a person who is as talented as you are, how did you find yourself into the tech navigating, you being a woman, or did you ever get a feeling that you enter a room and you are the only woman in the room? And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then how did you feel, and what should
Absolutely,
I mean,
yes.
my only thing
Absolutely,
is what
yes.
you would be, suggesting to the new girls or women who really wants to get their feet in the IT, or specifically want to get into the software engineering, data engineering. What are the roadmap you want to show to them?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so it is still a male dominated field, and I'm going to have to be straight honest. My hard time as the only woman in almost every single project I've worked on since day one, the hard time ended for me when I was able to prove that I knew more than every single male on the project.
Okay. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that required availability to put in
Mm-hmm.
a lot more work to get to target than any other male professional on the project.
Yeah.
So that's and that may sound really hard and discouraging for women. The thing is that if you do not have the will and the determination to prove your skills and your knowledge in a subject as a woman in minority, because I've been practically in every single job that I've covered, I've always been pretty much the only woman dominated by guys. Now, it's also true that I do have a personality that really does not give in to fear very
Mm-hmm.
easily. I have to call myself pretty fearless. So fear is not a dimension.
No, no. I mean, that's the best
Fear is
trait. Yeah.
not a dimension that in my life, in my mind, I am not fear driven. So because I know that I have the ability to understand and I have the willingness to put in the extra time and the extra effort to be able to reach the target where I need to be, then that takes fear out of the question. And so ultimately, being by myself in a room that's occupied by men that has never been actually a problem for me. It has never been one. And now the problem came when the men would take advantage of the fact that I was the only woman, and they would talk down to me instead of empowering me,
Yeah,
instead of including me.
that's
Okay.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Now, that was very hard, and that for sure happened. That type of behavior by men was very prevalent in the, I would say, in the first 5 to 8 years of my career. I could very well see that because I was still learning in a learning mode, and I was still ramping up to level, that
Yep.
the man would take advantage of that and put me in a corner or excluding me. But when I came to projects where I actually had all the skills and all the knowledge lined up, the man did show respect, and the man did show inclusiveness.
Yep.
And so that made my life a lot easier. Now, does that mean that that was easy for me? No, because I had to literally come up to speed and prove that I had the skills and the knowledge, and then I was at par with every single man that was on the project. So I pretty much was not allowed to show any weakness and any gap in knowledge and skills.
Yeah.
That's what made my life easier. And you know, that may sound tough to a lot of women, but that's I don't think it's still like this. It's still like this because even at Pratt and Whitney, I was the only woman. Actually, I had the project owner was also a woman, Fatima Lodi. And by the way, a superb Indian woman, and
Okay.
I worked with her really well. But in the team before, it was just men. It was just men, and I was always the only woman. But that doesn't affect my work anymore. It's absolutely not a dimension because the level of contribution that I bring in, it's something that cannot be overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
So the men are going to see that when I explain something and when I contribute,
Mm-hmm.
they know that it's very well backed up by experience and by knowledge.
Absolutely. I mean, I have this thing because the thing is, there are a lot of women and girls are looking at, the whole content, which we are going to post,
Yeah,
specifically for the conversation and,
yeah,
how you being a person who dominated the IT world with your, skills, someone who is new, coming fresh out of
yes,
a college and
yes,
looking to grow their career in the field of
yes,
software engineering, data engineering, what are the things
right,
that they should follow, starting with some certifications? How
right,
can they get a better mentor? If you can throw a little bit of light for the sake of our viewers.
absolutely, absolutely, yes. So number one, keep up to date with technologies. If you can imagine that I started from C++, moved myself into Java, moved myself from applications written on a prem server, on a server,
Okay.
without any exposure to RESTful APIs, to the internet, to ubiquitous applications. So I moved myself then into source services, from source services into web services, from web services on-prem to web services in the cloud. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so number one, keep abreast of technologies.
Okay.
Always have an open mind and an open perspective to new solutions. Never lock yourself into a solution thinking that that is the best one that you could ever achieve. Always keep your mind open to new ways, to new perspectives, new technologies, new solutions. In software, there is no such perfect solution that will be good forever. The concept does not exist. So you just have to have a very humble and very critical and very open type of mind, and always look for better ways to resolve a problem. There is never just one way. There's
Yeah.
always multiple ways. Technology changes every single day. Look at AWS. AWS, on average, issues a new service or improves at least a handful of services on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't keep up with the speed of technology's changes, you will fall behind extremely fast.
Yeah.
And in this era of fast change, you have to keep up with change.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to new technologies and always learn and always research. So having a learning mind, a mind that is always open to learning new ways, it's absolutely fundamental.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know you have a tennis class, so I would not take much of your time. I would
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
go to the a very fun segment, and it is gonna be a
yeah,
rapid fire kind of thing. That is a favorite of the conversation. So,
yeah.
which I mean, you talk about AWS. So I have an answer, but I'm just gonna ask you, which
Yes.
cloud platform do you like the most? Is it AWS, Azure, or GCP?
I absolutely love Azure. And the reason versus Microsoft. Now, Google platform, I haven't had a lot of exposure to Google, but there is one rule of thumb that you can apply to all the three clouds, that all three clouds give you computing power, networking capabilities, and storage solutions.
Yep.
All three do.
Okay.
Now, between Azure and AWS, I have a strong preference for AWS because Microsoft Azure tends to be, actually, no, tends to be, is Microsoft centric. And going back to open source with open technologies versus proprietary technologies by Microsoft, my preference is toward open source.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so if you have an organization that's Microsoft centric, right, where every single laptop in the organization is a Windows computer,
Mhm.
and your file system is on a Windows file system using Samba. Clearly, the company is going to prefer, for contractual reasons, they're going to prefer to extend their contracts with
Okay.
Azure Cloud. But clearly, if you have more of an open source mind, you're going to tend toward AWS. On top of it, AWS services, for example, you take the same, the same cloud compute, the EC2 instance, right? Your EC2 instance on Azure and your EC2 instance on Microsoft,
Mhm.
it is going to be a cheaper instance with the same capabilities, the same amount of CPUs, the same amount of memory, the same amount of block storage or instance store. It's going to be cheaper on AWS versus Microsoft. So
Absolutely.
Microsoft clearly is going to be overall a more expensive solution than an AWS solution.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean,
I don't
it was supposed to be a rapid fire, but however, you just explained it so well. I know because the thing is AWS has different services. You talk about the Lambda function, IAM,
Oh, yes.
Fargate,
Right,
anything you
right.
take, any example, I think it is very useful for the developers or any IT, professional out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, next three, four question, I just want to keep it very rapid. So you just need to
Yes,
answer, immediately. Which
yes.
programming language do you like the most?
My favorite, absolute favorite is Java.
Okay, next
Af
question. I will go to the next question. Docker
yes.
or Kubernetes?
I love the Docker and the Kubernetes technologies because they allow you to package an application with all of its configuration and all of its libraries, everything. It allows you to create an image and run that image in a virtual machine in complete isolation from the operating system and the hardware underneath it.
Okay. So one gadget that you cannot live without, one tech gadget that you cannot live without.
Uh, at this point in my career, I cannot live without Docker containers, without virtual machines spinning, and without cloud services.
Okay.
I would not want to be without any of those three.
Oh my God. I mean, if you ask me, I would say any OpenAI because I cannot live without any OpenAI. Whether it is ChatGPT,
Yes.
Gemini, anything. Okay, any.
Absolutely. But you know, all of the, most of the services that are offered on the cloud, they use ML and
Mhm.
AI.
Absolutely.
Just look at, for example, the way Advisor, Trusted Advisor, a lot of the tools, they parse the cloud trail
Yeah.
logging.
Yeah.
And monitoring is the huge advantage in the cloud, that everything that happens in the cloud by using those services, everything is logged and monitored. And all those logs are parsed to give you the intelligence that you need to make decisions on what to use in the cloud.
Okay. One of the next question, what is the funniest bug that you have debugged?
The funniest bug. Oh, okay. I have to tell you, the debugger was my absolute number one tool in my entire career when I would develop code and write code and test code and run code 16 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
The debugger was my best friend.
All
Number one tool. So
right.
the very first thing I would do is run my code through the debugger.
Okay.
Yep.
My another thing is, I mean, I just want to get to the wrap. However, there's a last question. If you need to define your career journey in one word, what
Yes.
would that it be?
My career is continue to learn, continue to acquire new technologies for automation and to relieve us from practical details, allowing us to focus on the resolution of business problems.
Absolutely. All right. I mean, that's going to be the wrap. I mean, if our viewers wants to connect with you, what would be the best way where they can connect? Whether it is going to be a LinkedIn or you have it.
Please send me an invitation on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Manish, I think you have published my LinkedIn
Yeah.
URL.
Yeah.
I welcome people to connect with me. I welcome anyone that needs to share or have input or have clarification on some technologies. I welcome questions, and I am happy to accept questions and send answers to anybody that would like to share ideas or to have doubts and questions on technologies. I welcome that. Please contact me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Monica, for joining us. And for our viewers, that's a wrap to our first episode of Code and Coffee Conversation. And if you like this episode, please do subscribe and always keep a comment or suggestions, what you want to see, and we'll go and come with that kind of content. Thank you so much, Monica, and we'll connect with you shortly.
Thank you, Manish. I
Thank you.
appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.